Welcome to another episode of The Shift with Elena Agad. In this discussion, I chat with Kamina Singh. She is the founder of HumanUPtions. It is an organization that really bridges the gap between university life and the corporate sphere. She is a powerhouse of a human being who is so passionate about bridging that gap, about just really giving back to the young people, creating opportunities for them to connect with corporates, and also connecting with corporates and educating them around different ways to work with higher education institutions. So really kind of bringing the two sides together, and at the same time, really offering those opportunities for the students, for the fresh graduates, people who are in a job search and kind of career change seekers. She's really kind of a believer of infusing education with real world experience. And if you've heard me speak before, I think that's such an important topic. And we, as institutions, as educators, often miss that because it is complicated to make changes. But we talk about some really practical things that can be applied in small steps, but very feasible, no matter how much budget you have as an institution. And also for university students and graduates, right? Like identifying some of those opportunities to connect with corporates. So she hosts great events around really bringing all these stakeholders in the same room. And it's just, she's just very, very exciting to talk to. You can see the passion that she has for the work that she's doing. And I think it's a great convo and it's very insightful. Check it out. Kamina, welcome to the Shift podcast.
Hi, Elena. It's a privilege for me to join you today. Thank you very much.
So you and I connected just a while back, I think via LinkedIn, or maybe we just connected via somebody introducing us. I don't exactly recall, because since that time, I felt like I've gotten to know you in so many different areas. Because one, for those who are listening, Kamina is not only kind of just a person, a driver behind trying to close that gap between university and corporate world, but you're also a massive networker and connector. And I have to give you a shout out on this podcast because you are so good at recognizing people who need to be connected, and that alone is a skill set that everybody can learn from. And I'm going to ask you about how you got to that, but I'm very excited to talk to you today about all the amazing things that you're doing and how you came about being the ball of energy and just inspiration that you are.
Oh, thank you. And back at you. I feel the same way. We actually connected on LinkedIn, and before we get started, LinkedIn is the foundation of HumanUPtions. It is such, I believe, an underused tool by career seekers, by students, by career advisors. And I mean, it's mostly free depending on how you want to use it. It's pretty sad that more people don't take advantage of it. So shout out to LinkedIn.
Yeah, definitely. Shout out to LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. All right. So let's dive into your story first and foremost. Who is Kamina? Why are you doing all these things with HumanUPtion? Talk to me a little bit about your career story and your educational story and how it brought you to having this chat with me today.
Sure. So first off, my name is Kamina Singh. I am the founder of HumanUPtions. Our goal is to create meaningful connections from mentorships, internships, apprenticeships, and jobs. Our career readiness events allow our audience to explore familiar and unfamiliar career options via storytelling by industry leaders and experts. The genesis of HumanUPtions is I came to the US as an international student, and I focused on getting good grades. It's cultural, it's what my parents had embedded in my head at a very young age. And I did pretty well in school. So when I graduated, I had not done an internship. I didn't really have a mentor. I didn't do an apprenticeship. So I took the job that paid the best. And also I had recently had an accident, so I needed health coverage fast. That was at a small software company, but I learned a lot there because we were small. Eventually, we were acquired by Northrop Grumman, and Northrop Grumman sponsored my green card. So I was very grateful for that, as you can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
In retrospect, would I have taken that job? Probably not. I really wanted to work in advertising, but that opportunity didn't present itself. So I took the best one that came my way.
That's cool. And so, and then what sparked starting HumanUPtion? Like, where did that inspiration come from?
Well, so the real genesis of HumanUPtions is, of course, I didn't do the internships, mentorships, etc. But also I felt like I didn't get any kind of guidance from the career advisors at the school I went to. So after the Northrop Grumman job, I worked on two different projects, and both were workforce related. So that kind of lit a little fire inside of me. And then after that, I worked for a same-day delivery startup, and that was housed at a WeWork. While at WeWork, the common co-working space,
Mm-hmm.
as we all know, I interacted with tons of people, different backgrounds, different age groups, different industries. And I sensed a common theme. I felt like nobody, almost no one had a career plan. So they were kind of doing jobs that they weren't passionate about. They didn't really want to be there. And the problem was that they didn't have the information or the courage to do something else. They were, burdened by mortgages, student loans, etc. So I decided to start Human Options. Initially, it was focused on, international students, people from underserved communities, community colleges, city colleges, where you don't have the privilege of getting, fancy guest speakers from top companies coming to tell you about their career path. I quickly learned that this demographic were unable to afford the tickets. So what I started to do is I started to reach out to companies and speakers to sponsor student tickets. And today we have a really great mix of different backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds. So people from the top Ivy League schools to the little community colleges come to Human Options. And not only do they get inspired by the speakers, but they actually get hired based on the relationship they foster at the event.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's so valuable. Similar to you, I went to a great school, but I think that it's not even to a fault of career services at university campuses. I think it's just there's a lack of resources that are embedded in career services. And I've always been for the push of like, take a little bit of the marketing budget and put it into career services. That's going to be your best marketing tool because you're going to have people that are graduating and going to be amazing ambassadors and alumni of that institution who are going to talk wonders about your institution and the career support that, that university, college, etc has given them. And I also didn't get great advice, but again, like not to the fault of the career advisor, it's just a job for them. We can't expect somebody to, to who's catering to hundreds of students. I think a lot of times in the larger schools, those have like 30,000 plus students, there's like one career advisor to like 100 plus students. How can you
Mhm.
possibly, and you meet them like once a quarter, maybe if that's even a thing, maybe twice a year. So I think there is that piece, and I think we're aware of that. And I want to, before we start recording, I said let's look at what are good examples of how to do it differently, and that's what I want to spend some time talking to you about because you're very passionate about this. You talk to a lot of educators, a lot of university folks, and a lot of students and parents, about what they look for, and how do we close the gap? Like, what are some good examples of of what other schools or universities people are doing out there?
Well, I am 100% in agreement with everything you just said. But I think the schools need to be a bit more open-minded by outsourcing these kinds of things because
Mm,
their career staff is so small. Moreover, I feel, and this is from my experience and from my friends and people I know as well, you don't get busy about your career until you're about to graduate, which I think is a failing. I can guarantee you that if at initiation, most parents go with their children to the initiation of orientation, sorry, not
hmm
initiation
yeah.
school. If you present to that parent and say, listen, for an extra $200 per semester, we will enroll your child in a career class. So by the time they're ready to graduate, they can hit the ground running. They can, be recognized and seen by the top companies, by the jobs that they want. I can't imagine that any parent would say no to that. So I think, just to add to what all the experts are saying, this is the buzz conversation everywhere. You need to change how colleges are teaching, what they are integrating into their curriculum. There's a lot of room to change, and there are a lot of companies that are interested and willing to do this. Just the mere fact that so many people who are in top jobs at companies are becoming coaches, it shows that they're willing to give back. And some of these people aren't even looking for payment because they're just trying to give back because they've been so fortunate in their career lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's to your point, I think it's about outsourcing and parts of it could be outsourcing for like a service,
Mhm.
or it could just be reaching out to being open to bringing external industry people, right? Because it seems like, it's and I've ran into this over the years. So I've for my audience knows, but I've been in higher education since the beginning of my career, and then I was always very passionate about it. I have a nonprofit that all we do is like basically cater to universities. We don't charge a penny for this. And I was always shocked to see how many universities won't take our, when we say, listen, like we have a group of mentors, they can speak about it, like no strings attached, I promise. We won't even publish it. We won't even brand ourselves if you don't want us to. Like, I could care less about making money. I just want to make sure that we're out there serving the young people because I feel very much like I feel for these young people, and
Mhm.
I'm in talent development right now. I'm in talent acquisition. I have a lot of I talk to a lot of college graduates. I interview a lot of young talent, and it's mind-boggling to me that there's certain gaps that exist that are very easy to fill. And to your point, I think maybe for universities to be just a little bit open-minded and maybe, remove the bureaucracy. I mean, that's another piece.
Exactly.
It's very bureaucratic about approvals and who can do what. Like, we get it, but I'm not saying invite anybody and everybody to come speak, but if you see, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you have like a proper
Like you
organization
have
that
like
provides this service, like I don't see an issue
I
with
don't
it.
see an issue with it.
So, but
So
anyway.
it's absolutely true. And I think, where there need to be they're a bit myopic is that if you graduate enough students that jump into jobs, they're your marketing team, right? They will sell for you. There's nothing like ROI. You don't even need to go find new students to enroll. They'll send them to you. So I don't know what it is, but I also, that's the same barrier that I also find as well, that they're not as welcoming to HumanUPtions as I would think they would be, because my events, I charge no more than $25 to students.
Mm.
Maximum 25, it's between 20 and $25 per ticket. So it's not a large amount of money. And for that, you get panel discussions, you get to meet top companies, you get some mentorship, you get interview skills, advice, you get resume tips. It's a ton of stuff for $20. It's at least 4 or 5 hours that you can really come out there feeling that I am ready to be hired.
Yeah, it's another thing that I see in the benefit of kind of having these external perspectives is I heard something recently and they, about like, Gen Zs and young people and so on. And there's a lot of talk about AI and how to prepare students or fresh graduates or all of us, frankly speaking. But and there's no like it's and I'm actually going to be writing an article about this to talk about like what do you need to do to maintain relevance? Like how do you stay competitive in a world of AI? And none of us know what's coming. None of us know how
Mhm.
fast it's going to change. And I think one of the things we really need to embed in our education system and just work with youth is this need for curiosity and creativity that is not just within the classroom, but really giving them that real world experience, like the apprenticeships piece, which I think is so important. And I'm glad to see those are coming back. I see a lot of
Yeah,
companies and organizations do that, but that's what we need to be teaching them more than like, I don't know. I mean, history is important, I guess. Let me not, slam history, but you know what I mean? Choose any other topic that's less relevant. Like, we always joke, like, I've never used algebra or geometry once in my life, type thing. But
exactly.
like, study it if you want to, but not at the expense of these other exposures that are more impactful for tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement. And what scares me about this is that this new dialogue that's going on, that we don't need to go to college anymore. I don't agree with that. I feel, especially for some people, first generation, underserved, it's very important. For me, it was very important. I came from a different country. And
Mm,
what college did for me, it allowed me to hone my power skills, as in communication, networking, building my confidence, exposure to different cultures, different people. And it's also the place where you make lifelong friendships, right? And that is very hard to do once you graduate.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a point I'm changing my mind about slightly. I used to be very pro, like, do you even need college? Like,
Mhm.
type person. But I was chatting when, to add to what you just said as well, which makes sense. But I was also chatting with another guest on my podcast just a few days ago, and he brought up a good point around you go to college to. It's not just about the piece of paper you're gonna get, it's the social aspect, like you said as well, right? Like it's the ability to debate. It's the ability to show up somewhere, to be on time somewhere, to think and write and look at different perspectives and have to have some kind of structure. And it's that. So, I think I guess my biggest issue with college is not even with the fact that we have college, but it's how it's advertised. I don't like it that we sell college or universities that it's going to get you the job, because it's not everything. It's a small part of
Mhm.
your overall experience. And I mean, any Gen Z that's listening right now that's trying to find an internship, let alone a job, can probably relate to this. I just think that we're doing like 20% of the work, and there's a lot more work that needs to be done on college campuses, and at home as well. But that's a whole other discussion about, how parents expose their kids to certain things or don't. But yeah, so I think it's a complex topic, but I tend to change my mind about college. I do think that there's a benefit. Um, yeah. I
I
guess maybe just choosing the right major as well. I mean, it's crazy. People graduating with like, majors and that, like, I'm not sure where you're gonna work with that. Do you know what I mean? And you're in debt already, and then you're refusing to work throughout. Anyway, it's a whole, I can go down rabbit hole, but you know, yeah, I think college is important, but what you're studying, what you're doing while you're in college, how you're benefiting from it is all equally as important that we forget about.
Well, I think it just needs to be done differently. That's my opinion. And I also think that's why you need to start to guide these students from the beginning. Don't wait until they're in their third year or they're about to graduate. And also, companies need to get involved as well, because they have the most to gain from a student who is graduating and can hit the ground running versus spending a whole another year being trained at a company, right? That's not a really great use of a company's time or resources. If you get involved by the time they graduate and they can start working, not even from day one, but at least by day 30, it's to
Hmm.
your advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious, from your experience. So you went from working for a large company to then, doing your own thing and being an entrepreneur. What has been the biggest lessons that you've learned for yourself? Like, what are the biggest lessons that you've learned about yourself as well? When I went through my journey, there was a lot of lessons I did not realize I needed to learn, but I did. And I'm probably still learning. Curious about your experience.
Well, so I always think of myself as someone, I'm very driven. So I don't need a manager, but I need a coach. And that's what I miss sometimes working by myself. But also from working at a big company like Northrop Grumman, it was a publicly traded company. So you learn really fast that, you lost a client or you didn't make your numbers. There was no time for grief. You just, pick yourself up, newfound optimism, and you move forward again. So that was a big part of it. What else? I think, the good thing about when you work at companies, it's the people you interact with. I learned so much from other people. You learn what to do and what not to do. You learn what to do better. I remember there was actually this guy that I worked with, and nothing bothered him. Elena, uh, his clients would screw him over. People would screw him over. His friends would screw him over. Family would screw him over. So one day I said to him, I said, what the heck? What do you want? Share it. And his answer is still in my head today. He said, I have vision. He said, don't get lost in the minutia. And every time I interact with someone, who comes to HumanUPtions, and I feel like I'm being taken advantage of, because that's another thing about working for yourself or as an entrepreneur, I think people don't respect the thousands of hours that you pour into this. They see what seems like a finished product, but there's so much more still going on behind the scenes. And also because you're an entrepreneur, there's no one else to blame, right? So even if you're having a bad day or your product is crappy, you still pretend like it's great because I can't say, well, it's Elena, an accountant that messed up the bills or anything like that. So um, uh, I'm not sure if I'm answering your question. I'm giving you a lot of
Yeah,
information here.
you are.
But
Yeah.
I guess in essence is that I learned a lot from working at big companies, and a lot of that I applied to today. But also, I also learned a lot from just being an entrepreneur that you can't take it personally. And there are going to be some very tough times when you just want to throw your hands in the air and say, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm just going to go back and get a job. And I always keep that in the back of my head because as we know, we keep hearing how you need, so many millions to retire. I don't know who really has that. And as an entrepreneur, that's a very hard number to get to.
Yeah, it's definitely a roller coaster. And I think in this day and age it's been so romanticized and
Mhm.
trendy. And I think that people don't, we always see the social media, the influencers and the people who make it, and, this entrepreneur says this, or this is how you make this much money. And I think that road is much harder and it's much longer and it's very lonely in a lot of cases. And it
Mhm.
takes a certain kind of grit and resilience and just perseverance to be able to do it. And you know what I've noticed as well is that a lot of the, and this I guess speaks to our society, but you will see much more buy-in into the stupidest, well, in my opinion, I guess it's a very personal, into the stupidest things that are like silly videos or offensive content or, inappropriate things, you know, versus educational content or, entrepreneurs that are trying to make a difference. It's even tougher for those people because we as a
Mhm.
society are attracted to things that are, sexy, forbidden, bad for us, intriguing, and that's why I guess this gap continues to exist because we don't invest into things that actually matter, like our careers and well-being and health and relationships. And that's why we're, more obese than ever as a country. We are more disconnected, lonely, and so on. So I think there's a lot of societal things that go into and
Mhm.
systematic, I don't know what's the right word here, systemic things, I guess, that go into everything that we're talking about, because I think that there's all of that impacts education, all of that impacts our youth and their, smooth or not so smooth transition to the corporate world.
I love your honesty. And, I think the problem is that we're all looking for a quick fix, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also, if things are not going well for you, you find something that distracts away from that, right? And what does that mean? I don't know. You look at someone on a beach that has, tons of access, but that's very short term. It goes back to the whole thing about having vision, right? And if you don't have vision, then you live in the moment, and the moment doesn't get you very far.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious also, put on a hat of I don't know, a dean of a college or head of whatever department or head of school. What would you do differently if you're in their shoes when it comes to providing the service to their students? What else would you do different? We've already mentioned a couple of things, but what else would you add to that?
Hmm. Um, Well, like I think what's very important is to start the conversation from orientation. And I don't think too many schools do that. I don't even know of any schools that do that. Not like I know all the schools. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be a really good place to start. And of course, everybody's trying to, buddy up with the companies, etc. Um, just let the students know from the time they start university that you should really start to think about where you want to go after you leave. Think about what career you want. And then also, this is why when I have these events, I try to have a very diverse panel, because it's very important that the students in the panel can see a reflection of their future success. What does that mean? Say, for example, you studied accounting in college. I know you're about to graduate and you realize that you really hate accounting. You don't want to work at any of the accounting companies because it just doesn't fit into who you are anymore. You can still work at Google or TikTok and be an accountant, and you're in a whole different environment. And you don't have to abide by the rules of being a straight-laced accountant. And these are questions that actually get asked at the event. I'm majoring in this. I'm about to graduate. I've changed my mind. I don't like this anymore. What can I do? So I feel like if university starts to share this kind of information from the beginning, they can create proper guidance for these students so they are not there's not all this cognitive dissonance right before graduation or even after graduation.
Hmm. Yeah, it's an interesting point. And a lot of schools, what not a lot, but some schools that I've come across have started to um require to take certain courses like a career, like whatever they call it, like a career prep course or
Mhm.
something like that, where they get like, insights into different jobs and so on. But what's interesting is that I wonder, even if it is done at orientation, if it's not required for credit, I wonder how many of them are aware enough how difficult the real world is post graduation. I wonder if they care. I think it's important to mention it, but I think it's further even more important to require a course accredited course every
Mhm.
semester around career development. Call it like real world stuff,
Mhm.
101, 201, 301, etc.,
Mhm.
until you graduate. And at each level, you continue to kind of, add more and more reality to what that world is like and incorporate some of the things that you're talking about now, because I'm just thinking of myself. Like when I was at that age, I was so clueless. Like I always say, like I was like the
Yeah.
dumbest 20 something year old. Like I felt like looking back, I was like, what the hell was I doing? Like, I have no idea. Like, I was so clueless, you know, not that I wasn't interested, I was just clueless. And sure, there are a lot of people that are just, I mean, I admire anybody who's, when I interview people, I'm like, how did you think to do this at like 21? I felt so stupid when I was in that age, so, but I think a lot of kids just don't, well, not kids, but a lot of college graduates uh, don't understand the real world and the difficulty of it. So some of them could be clueless, like myself was.
Mhm.
Some of them could just not care. But some,
Mhm.
I think, just unaware. I think they think that they can wait until graduation to tackle those problems and to tackle the real world and the job applications until the reality hits them in the face. And I think the sooner the reality can hit them, the better it is. I don't know. What do you
And
think?
the worst part about that is that then that converts to frustration, right? And that's not a very good thing when you just graduated, you have all this student debt, loan debt. But also, as you were talking, I just remembered something. I speak to a lot of university administrators as well as students and companies. I try to learn from all the people that are involved in creating a successful career. And quite a few of the university administrators have told me that they would like to get the students out of that academic environment. And to what you're saying, how great would it be that every semester you take your classroom to a company, even if it's just for an hour, to shadow somebody who works there, like a past alumni, just so they see what it's like out there. I think it would really create some excitement in them and also create some kind of curiosity into what they really want to do when they graduate. Because you're not in a classroom, especially now, I'm sure a lot of these kids are in a classroom with their headphones on their phone, not paying attention. But when you're in that environment where you don't have that as an option because you have to be switched on, I really believe that it would, light a fire somewhere that you can
Mm.
use when you graduate. Because I like to go back to the point, waiting until your last semester or waiting until you graduate to think about what you want to do is not good. And this is what we did. But now that we know better, we should do better by offering up these opportunities to students.
Yeah. And to be fair, it's not all on the university. I think there's another half of
Mhm.
this, which is the corporates. And I
Yeah.
think the reason that so this is something I mean, I'm in a small company, and and we try to do things differently, and I think we do a good job overall, but we can definitely do better. And as I'm thinking about this out loud, I'm like maybe we should do something differently. But the reason that we see all these big companies at university campuses, right? I think it's kind of dilutes the real world, because the Metas, the Amazons, the Facebooks, they're the ones that have whole teams of young talent pipeline people, or the Deloittes of this world. They have whole teams of people that are dedicated specifically to go into these events. Versus in a small company, it's a smaller team. You don't have the manpower necessarily to do that. Not that you shouldn't. So maybe part of it, like for small companies, they need to find a way to be present at some of these events, because I think for two different reasons. One, we know this, majority of the people coming to events, and if they see the TikToks, the Meta, the Google of this world, a very small percentage, if any, are actually going to get those jobs. So the majority of the jobs are going to go, the majority of a lot of the young talent in reality is going to go to, SMEs, small, medium-sized enterprises. And they're not always going to be big names. Some of them might get lucky with a big name, but it depends. I think majority of students will end up with a smaller company. And I think putting all those, I think that's one way we also discourage students, because it's so difficult to get into those companies. But you don't have to. You can have a beautiful career in a small company and make equal amount of money and grow and so on. It depends on what you want and so on. But I think it dilutes the experience, because usually what we see on university campus is those large companies, because they're the ones, again, with those resources. But I don't think it's a real representation of the US opportunities and jobs that are available.
So I've actually had the privilege of working on some project with some big companies and some government companies. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to mention it, so I wouldn't give any names. And you're dipping into something else there. So government should get involved as well. So imagine, and these projects I worked on, so this is not like an organic original idea that I'm bringing to the table here. What they did is that the government paid for the interns to work at small SME companies. And it was very beneficial on both sides, right? Because the students were able to work for a company and gain expertise in real life, and then the companies were able to grow by working with a student who brought different tools to the table that they didn't have, like social media, for example. A lot of small companies can't afford to have someone doing their social media, and they do it by trial and error, and more often than not, they get fed up and then they throw it away, and it's a lost opportunity. So government really needs to get involved as well. So there are a lot of different pieces that can make this happen. And going back to what we talked about earlier, we know what these pieces are. So I think it's time to put it together and really make it better for the students who are graduating next year and the year after and the year after that. It's not too late.
Yeah, it's a good point. I didn't know about this kind of government program or sponsorship that's available. That's an excellent point. And again, I don't think companies are aware. Government usually doesn't do a great job of promoting what's available to the company to support to SMEs or regular citizens or whatever may be. I mean that's been a challenge for sure. So I think government just doesn't do great marketing. So if anybody wants to go work for the government and do amazing marketing, I'm sure they'll take you on. I did not sponsor this message.
The projects I worked on for that were all at the what do you call it? I think that's the local level. We're out of the mayor's office. And I found them to be really well done, especially because the project managers were so passionate. It made a massive difference.
Yeah, that's interesting. I had no idea about that. That's interesting to know though. So kudos to, local governments that do that. I think it's a great way to ensure that the state of your workforce, so to say, in your state, in your locality is growing.
I'll shout them out. It's called the Angelino Core. And it's out of Los Angeles. It's the mayor's office out there. I believe it was an initiative by Mayor Eric Garcetti. I know the program is run by Makita Vela and Hannah Lee, who's the direct program director for the project. It's called, like I said, Angelino Core. And I've been working with them since 2022. And I was fortunate enough to get introduced to this program through Pepe Zhao. She worked at Facebook, and Facebook had a project called Career Connections, and they were training students in digital media and then placing them at companies. And some of the internships were paid for by the mayor's office in Los Angeles. So it was very, very successful. And this has been going on since 2022. So I don't understand why this is something that shouldn't be replicated across the country.
Right, right. No, it's an interesting concept. Hopefully, maybe somebody who's listening to this might take benefit of
Yeah.
this and replicating it. I think we can talk for hours. I'm mindful of our time, but you also have an event coming up in April, and I'm hoping to release this episode before that. So tell me a little bit about the event that you're hosting. I mean, I'm very excited to participate. Our mentors are excited to participate and kind of give back. But talk to me a little bit about the event, and then where can people get more information about the event, about you, about Human Options?
Well, thank you for the free advertisement. Appreciate it. I really counts, right? So we have an event on April 12th. It's an all-day event. It's at Civic Hall on 14th Street in New York City. You can go to humanoptions.com and you'll see all the information. Tickets go on sale March 10th. And we have panel discussions that will delve into how AI can help you to get a job, prepare you for the working world. And then we also have another panel discussion that talks about classroom to boardroom, which preps you exactly to what we were talking about earlier about using your classroom to prepare you for the boardroom, and then taking advantage of meeting companies who can buddy you up with mentors within their companies to get you job ready. We have some top-notch companies that will be there. I don't want to tell you as yet because I want it to be a surprise to go on sale. But I'd like to shout out especially one company. They're called Avenica, and they are an early careers recruiting company. What I love about them, Elena, is that their platform is free to students. And to me, that's a huge opportunity, because if you join the platform, and from what I understand, they also do they give you some kind of guidance. So you're not just throwing your resume onto the platform. So you actually have the opportunity to speak to someone there who can give you some guidance as to, what jobs you should look for, what you should put on your resume. They get you career ready. So they will be in addition to that, we will have something similar. It's a job fair, but I don't want to say it's only a job fair, because many of the students who come to these events, don't take this personally, students, you're not ready to be hired. So you will meet recruiters, and they can explain to you what happens when you throw that resume into the black hole. They can tell you what companies are looking for, what you should put on that resume, how to prepare yourself for an interview. For example, many people, myself included, I used to do this back in the day. When you go to an interview and someone says, do you have any questions? The worst thing you can say is, no, I don't have any questions, because you seem uninterested. You seem like you didn't do your homework. So the event is on April 12th. It's from 11 o'clock to 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to 4:30. We are expecting 400 attendees from 35 plus universities. We'll have 10 plus companies. Like I said, we'll have recruiters. We'll have top leaders. I'm talking at the C-level from companies who really, really want to talk to you and give you some guidance. We also have wonderful gentleman. His name is Brandon Hurst. He owns a Chick-fil-A franchise, and he will talk about the benefits of owning a franchise, something I never thought, never thought about when I was in school. And then from Avanica, we have the CEO, and he, what I like about him is that he doesn't have like a pure HR background. He's actually a data scientist. So I can't wait to hear what data he's going to throw out there. We have New York Life. We have another company called Side Hustles, which can tell you what to do even before you get to that big job to help you hone those power skills.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think, I mean, just based on what I know about him, what the discussions we had, I think it's going to be awesome. I'm very excited about it. I'll make sure to include this in the show notes as well, so people can visit the website and register accordingly. But before we do that,
I wanted to add
yeah,
something more.
please.
So Elena, wonderful Elena, has been kind, generous, gracious enough. She has a team of mentors that, correct me if I'm wrong, career coaches that she works with via Bloom Youth, which is her nonprofit. And they will school all attendees the week before the event, 1 hour on Friday, 1 hour on Saturday, on how to present yourself at this event to the speakers, to the recruiters, to the companies. They will give you interview tips. They will give you resume tips. So when you get there, you're pretty warmed
Ready
up.
to go. Yeah, we're going to talk about it all. We're going to talk about branding, all that good stuff. So we're very, very excited for that.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the tickets, sorry, can be purchased, via humanoptions.com. We'll put up the Eventbrite link there. I will post it on LinkedIn. And of course, please, everybody who's listening, kindly link with me on LinkedIn. It's Kamina Singh, humanoptions.com. And I respond to everyone.
Yeah, you are very good at LinkedIn. I'm going to start calling you the queen of LinkedIn because I think you're an amazing networker, connector, and I really, really mean it. I'll make sure to include all of that in the show notes as well, like your profile. So anybody who's listening can take note of it. Just look in the show notes when you get a chance. It's all going to be there. The last question I ask all of my guests is the following. What is one question you wish people would ask themselves more often?
So based on my personal experience, and also this is something I remind myself all the time. How do your actions affect others as in what you do, what you say, what are the long-term effects, what are the short-term effects, and most importantly, what are the ripple effects? Sometimes you can say something in the moment, but it really can splay out and affect someone. So I try to be aware of that, and that would be my question.
It's a beautiful question to ask. Kamina, thank you so much. Good luck on the event. I'm sure it's going to be phenomenal. And maybe we can chat again afterwards and just talk about how awesome it was and takeaways and all of that. So I think there's plenty more to unpack here, but I appreciate your time. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. I'm very grateful for this, and I look forward to seeing you at the event. I know we talked about it, and thank you again for sharing Bloom Youth and your coaches with us. It's very important to the students, and I know they will take advantage of it. And just so you know, the event is not only for students, it's for professionals as well. Thank you very much, Elena. Have a good day.
My pleasure.